It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Greetings, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'll be your host today. Appreciate you joining with us. Thank you very much. We are at the tip of the spear of the cloture vote that is scheduled today in the Senate. We're going to explain that for you, and we're going to enlist your assistance today. And we've got to do this early because the vote will be held in the afternoon. And I think it's important that we understand the principles and the process of this cloture issue. And we look at some examples of what people are putting up on their senatorial representatives' Facebook pages. That's going to be our first and our second segment. We're going to take the entire hour to discuss this today because it is such a critical and important issue. And we're going to evaluate why the Ted Cruz filibuster discussion, whatever you want to call it, was so successful. Despite what the media will tell you, it was extraordinarily successful, and we're going to evaluate a little bit about why that is. The third segment this morning, we're going to talk about savings accounts, the European Union, and the fate of America as banks around the world and central banksters begin to drain personal accounts and those accounts of high net value in order to bail out, or as they're calling it, a bail-in, the central banks. Your money, if you have money in a savings account or a corporate account or a business account or a personal account, is at risk and in danger. It won't be long before this virus, this cancer, spreads to the United States of America, especially as our financial situation degrades. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then the final issue that we're going to discuss is, there was a claim made the other day that, and this came out of the one of the senior Obama administration officials, and he was talking about the debt ceiling, and he referred and compared House Republicans to terrorists, kidnappers, and arsonists. This is Dan Pfeiffer, and we're going to talk a little bit about that because what I want you to understand, and what critical thinkers will grasp immediately from that kind of rhetoric, is that what we're looking at here is the opening shots of a fascist/Marxist type propaganda where when you tell the lie often enough and it's big enough, it becomes believable. If you don't believe me, just ask Goebbels, the lead propagandist for the Nazis. This is classic demonization of the opposition, and it is straight out of the Marxist fascist book of propaganda. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and evaluate and understand more about what that means and what we can see as we move forward. You're going to see this kind of rhetoric increase. Harry Reid started it the other day, and a lot of the Democratic representatives in both Senate and House have been utilizing this type of language, this incendiary statements. Now, it's one thing for the public to say that. I say it all the time. However, I've got to tell you, when it starts coming from the mouths of government, it's totally different. You see, my role is to educate, inform, motivate, and activate you. Their role is not to demonize their potential opposition or what have you. Their role is to give truth And we know that's not the case. We're going to talk a little bit about that. For the record, by the way, the editor of Time magazine just recently left Time magazine, which of course is failing and is in utter collapse. It's quote unquote epic fail. And the reason he left was to go to the Obama administration. And what's amazing about that is that he is only one of the last 25 plus who has done this. Now, what's happening is they are leaving in vast droves from the mainstream Ministry of Propaganda, and they are moving into the administration, the Obama administration. Tell me the media isn't biased when the hope of every one of them in their hearts is that as their magazines and their newspapers go into meltdown and their viewers drop off like flies as the public begins to see the lie and taste and smell the propaganda, tell me that their fondest hope is not to have a place to go and a string to pull on this administration by claiming, well, we supported you, and now we need a hidey hole to go run to. You watch and see. This is only the latest in a long string of journalists, alleged journalists, who have vacated the public sphere and gone to work for the administration. So let's evaluate first and foremost this issue of where things are going on this vote today for cloture. I know I've gotten a lot of emails and I've gotten a lot of phone calls. I think a lot of people don't understand the concept of cloture and what these votes mean. I've had people say to me, well, why would you want to vote no versus yes? Okay, so let's just give you and we're not going to get real technical, but suffice it to say, if you vote no on the cloture, you are restricting Harry Reid from being able to pull the Obamacare language out of the continuing resolution that was pushed forward by the House. Now, the reason is because once cloture is invoked, if a senator votes yes for cloture and cloture is invoked, then they no longer need 60 votes in the House or in the Senate, in order to, which is a clear supermajority, in order for Harry Reid to take action. If the vote of cloture is defeated and no is the vote, then Harry Reid would not be able to work his will, if you will, on the continuing resolution that was issued by the House. You keep hearing Democrats telling us on a routine basis, when you see them talking on the news, when you read their articles in the paper, how dangerous this is, that the Republicans are going to destroy and shut down government, and that it's in their best interest to capitulate and stop trying to fight against Obamacare. Well, I got to tell you something. That, ladies and gentlemen, itself is a form of propaganda. Why is it that you or anyone else would believe a Democratic strategist or a Democratic member who supports and defends this administration when their obvious, clear, and definitive goal is to move the country in the way they want? In other words, if they're going to sit there and tell you that it's in your own best interest as a conservative to do this or that, why would you believe that? They don't really have your best interest at heart, so any advice they would give should clearly be followed in the opposite, right? I'm suggesting to each person that is listening to my voice that this morning you go out and you contact your senatorial representatives. There are 2 for every state. You pick up the telephone and you call them at 202-224-3121. And your statement is simply this: vote no on cloture, defund this monstrosity. Defund Obamacare. Now, I went on to Claire McCaskill and I went on to Roy Blunt's Facebook pages this morning. And I posted on Mr. Monsanto, Roy Blunt, vote no on cloture. Defund this monstrosity. 71% of Missouri told Claire to vote no, and she ignored us. Don't follow suit. Now, I went on to Claire's page, and I posted comments on there. I'm sure I'll get banned and blocked from the page. This is my post on Claire the Trader's website or Facebook page. Vote no on cloture, Claire. Defund this monstrosity. 71% of Missouri told you to do so when you supported it at its unholy conception. And she refused to do the will of the people. She refused. Now, you can't have it both ways. Remember that the 17th Amendment said that senators no longer represented the state, they represented the people, a duplication of the House of Representatives, which I've spoken about many, many times and warned you is one of the primary causes of the breakdown of what we have in government. Our founders clearly defined the idea that representatives represented the people. The House of Senate was representing not the individual people themselves, but the state's best interest. And we all know that Obamacare is not in the state's best interest because the states are going to have to pick up all of the weight of the Medicaid that is going to come down when all of these people that are under 133% of poverty are kicked off the public roll or kicked off the private insurance company rolls and are thrown onto Medicaid. Now, look, Medicaid is already bankrupt. Already. Not tomorrow, not a year from now, not 5 years from now like Social Security. Medicaid is already bankrupt. Adding literally millions of Missourians, because let's be candid, Missouri is not exactly a wealthy state, especially in the southern reaches and in the far northern reaches and in the ghettos of St. Louis and in the ghettos of Kansas City. So when you have millions of people being added to the Medicaid rolls, how is the state supposed to contend with that? Other than one solution. They've only got one option. Raise taxes. So Claire, traitor that she is, 71% of Missouri notified and informed her back when Obamacare was just getting started, do not support this. Now, she can't have it both ways. She can't say, I represent the people when it's time to get elected. But then when the people speak, she says, well, I don't really have to listen to what the people say. I represent the state. That's classic hypocrisy, which Claire is very good at. Now, the truth of the matter is, she's out there saying this morning on Morning Joe, I debunked another Republican myth about Obamacare. The debate heats up around the 147 mark. Now, for the record, you got to realize some of the comments that are coming out of here. She also says in another posting, I didn't go to Harvard like Ted Cruz. As if that's supposed to be some kind of a mark of a failure on Ted Cruz's part. What's wrong with the fact that he went to Harvard? The guy came from about as humble a beginning as you can imagine. So what Claire is saying is that if you grab yourself by your bootstraps and you rise to the top, to the cream of the crop in the academic world because of skill and talent, that's some reason to be demonized. I mean, Cruz came from as humble a beginning as anyone could. She says, I didn't go to Harvard like Ted Cruz. I went to the University of Missouri. But I think he's missing the point of green eggs and ham and what it means to Obamacare. I mean, this is classic. This is classic betrayal and misdirection. I mean, let's not talk about the real issue of Obamacare. Let's make fun of Cruz's reading of Green Eggs and Ham to his daughters as they went to bed, since the guy was up for 22 hours. Now, some of the comments that are out there are interesting. Here's one. Senator, if Obamacare is supposed to be so wonderful, then why did you and your colleagues vote to exempt yourself from this train wreck of a law? Why do you suppose all of your union buddies are so opposed to this law and claim it will ruin the 40-hour work week for so many employees? Many businesses and companies cite the excessive cost of Obamacare as the reason for laying off employees, reducing their hours, and not hiring. No response. Here's another one. Why don't you sign up for it? You can take my place. Also, we want you to say no, no, no to UN Arms Treaty. Here's another one. And by the way, I'm not reading these out of order. These are in order. Just a reminder that you are in a red state and are being watched by your constituents on how you vote on the defunding of Obamacare, a law that will forever ruin the best healthcare system in the world through the free market. I implore you to stand with Ted Cruz and do not allow Harry Reid to remove the defunding from the bill. If Obamacare is good enough for the American people, it should be a necessity for Congress, without any subsidies paid for by working-class Americans. The next one here is in support of her. It says, thank you. One would think they are loading us into rail cars headed for extermination camps. I mean, you know, the truth is, this bill, and bear in mind now, this is her Facebook page, so it's where all of her supporters are headed, right? And she's got 74,000 likes on her page. So we have to expect many people are going to support her. There's another one that says, Claire McCaskill for president. Oh, my goodness. That guy has drank way too much Kool-Aid. From what I have read, Senator, this is Rhonda, Senator, from what I have read in the Affordable Care Act, it is terribly scary. Obama bullied Congress into passing it. It is a disaster in the making. So please stop defending it. And if you believe in it, then make sure you aren't exempt from it. Here's another one. Vote no on cloture or start looking for a new job. Here's another one. I agree with Rhonda. Defund this mess of a bill or make yourself and every other lowlife in D.C. participate in the exchanges for socialized health care, which will destroy this great country. Here's another one. Honorable Senator. Please know, I wouldn't call her anything but honorable. Please know that I recognize that a vote for cloture is effectively a vote to fund Obamacare. Please do not vote for cloture. Senators voting for cloture and then voting against the bill because it has Obamacare funding it will not be fooling anybody. Senator, here's another one. Never, ever forget that Barack Obama took almost $800 billion away from Medicare, to pay for this Obamacare nightmare. This huge cut in Medicare caused a major reduction in crucial benefits for our senior citizens. Benefits they worked and paid for all their lives, and now we're counting on. If Obamacare is so fantastic, then why are the hypocrite members of Congress and staff not subjected to the same oppressive law you're shoving down our throats? You see, the American people get it. They understand. Now, I'm telling you that I read those pretty much in order. Out of the ones that I read, almost every one of them, and it's an 8-to-10 ratio, is against Obamacare. You see, the real problem here is that our representatives no longer represent us. And that's the problem. They don't represent us in any way, shape, or form. There are posts in here that are, really long, guys. You ought to go to Claire McCaskill's page and read some of this stuff. It's amazing. And that's only her page. Roy Blunt has got just as much. Vote no on cloture. Vote no, vote no, vote no. Over and over and over and over and over. Here's one that's interesting. A new government report found that the IRS's Obamacare fraud prevention program has been plagued with implementation problems. The law's a train wreck. That's why I'm co-sponsoring Ted Cruz's legislation to defund Obamacare, and I continue to fight for a full repeal of this law. Senator Blunt, vote no. Back up your continued statements about repeal and defund. A vote for Harry Reid's cloture is a vote for Obamacare. Vote no. Vote no on cloture. Vote no, Mr. Blunt. If you vote yes, you'll be contributing to major job loss in this country. Vote no. If you really want to defund Obamacare, you wouldn't be voting for cloture, Rhino. Vote no on cloture, please. I'm reading them in order. Defund Obamacare. It is your job to represent the people who put you in your position. See, that's the problem, folks. They believe they don't owe anyone any allegiance, neither you as a voter nor the state. That's my point from earlier on in the show, when I said to you that under the 17th Amendment, they were put in a position where they now have no allegiance to anyone other than themselves. And that is a perfect example of why the 17th Amendment should be repealed. Because the original concept of our founders was that you had the representatives in the Senate who were chosen and selected and or appointed by the legislatures of the independent states, the sovereign states. In other words, the House got together and the Senate got together of the state assembly or the legislature, and they said, this is the guy or this is the girl or whatever we're going to put into office as our representative, representing the state of X, the state of Y. Meanwhile, the people themselves can vote for their representatives in their districts. That was the idea. Now, and by the way, the game plan was that at a later date, when that senator didn't do what was best for the state, and in many cases, many legislatures told the senators how to vote. They said, you're our representative. We're not letting you use your own judgment. We're telling you this is what we want. But the Senate didn't like that. So they got the rules changed under the 17th Amendment. And it used to be that the legislature would call the senators back home and say, what the heck are you doing in there? Now they can call the senator before them, and guess what the senator says? I don't have to show up. Get out of my face. When was the last time either Claire McCaskill or Roy Blunt went and addressed our Senate or in our House as a collective unit? Bingo. They don't have allegiance to anyone. The only people they have allegiance to is Roy Blunt and Claire McCaskill. That's it. Their own personal little race for power. We're going to take a break. You're listening to America's Voice Now. When we come back, we're going to talk more about this. I'm going to read you some more comments off their Facebook pages. I'm telling you today, call your senators. Do it now. Don't wait. We'll be back in just a moment. 202-224-3121. That's the number for their switchboard. 202-224-3121. We'll be back in just a moment. When we come back, we're going to talk more about this, and then we're going to get into our savings account theft, how they're bailing out banks on the savings deposits of their depositors. Dangerous stuff, folks.